Greetings, welcome back to Black Bear News, where we are discussing abrupt ecological collapse, or abrupt climate change, or abrupt biosphere collapse. Sorry, the lighting is very weird. I'm currently traveling. I'm in Austin, Texas, Hambone's stomping grounds. Possibly might see him either today or tomorrow. I don't know. Yeah, I'm doing a little trip, playing some music, and I wanted to continue making videos if at all possible while I'm here. So there's, obviously, as usual, lots happening, lots going on. I believe the Northeast got yet another massive storm. Weather is all over the place in some areas. We are experiencing weather whiplash, if you will. But lots of other things happening too. There's yet another article I want to read. I've just got like a stack of articles that seem to get buried. So what happens is I end up reading a few articles from my recent I don't know, compiling of articles that I'm constantly doing. Again, thank you all for sending me articles and keeping me updated and keeping me abreast of what's going on. I am a one-man operation. I'm a one brain and two eyes operation, and there's only so much I can read or look at in a day. So I try to look at everything that I can, but there's just time is very precious. So if I don't see everything that you send me, or if I don't speak about it or speak on it, or just know that I got it, and I'm trying to do my best to keep up with it, but keep it coming. Let's see. Have so much to read, so little time, and yeah, where to start? What I wanted to do was start with, there are also many comments that I want to read, and it's those also get stacked up in the list. I'm going to take a break. So sorry, where was I? So I'm going to read this very long but very good comment from Accord de Paris, or Accord de Paris, Accord de Paris. This is one of the comments I really wanted to read, and this is fairly recent, 9 hours ago. Given the following, the doomsday clock should be set at 5 seconds to midnight, and it has nothing to do with Iran, Putin, Rocket Man, or Trump. Things have moved far beyond any of their abilities to modify the situation. From a nuclear scientist, who's also a wind, solar, diesel advocate, system component designer, and owner of the largest Paris Accord site on the net, pay attention or perish. Parents, teachers, pundits, politicians, and candidates of all parties in all nations have tough decisions in 2018 and consistently fail to establish intelligent priorities based on reality. Ding, ding, ding. That single failure and bottleneck, their lack of focus on crushing issues that affect everyone everywhere, all but guarantee extinction. Due to the Arctic's record scorching spring temps, either we recall politicians using snap elections, great idea, I don't know how to implement, but that's a great idea. Replacing them with sane, honest candidates who follow through on a promise to eliminate fossil fuels in every city and farm on Earth in under a year. Snap elections happen in other countries, but unless we can get some kind of recall, and it would be really massive to recall like all the politicians in the United States. I don't even know how to go about doing that, but I'm interested because really we don't have time to wait. While utilizing geoengineering to heal our oceans, rivers, soils, and atmosphere, or as the accorddeparis.org website explains, clarify in horrific detail, all life, including humans, will be extinct in under a decade. Current trends clearly indicate infants won't see age 10, most kids won't see age 20, grads won't see 30, and Gen X folks can forget about retirement altogether. We are smoked, and the opportunity window to enact the required change is closing fast. I'm surprised kids even go to school at all. They ought to be storming the mayor's offices, demanding every community fast-track the mayor's plans described at accorddeparis.org. Our Arctic radiator is now bone dry, and we all know what happens to the temp gauge in your car when the last bit of coolant is gone and it races to redline in a blink. Then your engine catastrophically fails. In this case, drought, famine, wildfires, superstorms, and floods will continue to devastate civilization at an exponentially increasing rate. When abrupt sea level rise triggers catastrophic failure of only 5% or just 50 to 80 of the 1,600 nuclear facilities worldwide, we are done. Just as if we had endured a nuclear war where everything, everywhere dies almost overnight. That day is coming in just a few years, perhaps months. Arctic trends in January, February 2018 show this clearly enough to anyone paying attention. Are you? In addition to polar methane and sea level trends, record droughts, wildfires, crop failures, and new disease vectors due to a warming planet, any of which can collapse civilization almost overnight, far easier than you can imagine. Are you also monitoring ocean acidification? Plankton populations, those tiny critters who produce 70% of our oxygen, are dying right along with the Amazon, the lungs of the planet, which make up much of the difference. Sorry if this picture is going all over the place. Doing this on my kneecaps. Where did I go? Where did it go? Where did it go? Excuse me. And also dying, the Amazon is also dying through deforestation and desertification at an accelerating pace. Going to be tough surviving with dwindling oxygen, food, and water supplies. There are alternatives we can fast track, including wind, solar, nuclear power, and massive desalination plants which can flood drought-stricken areas, enabling habitat restoration and CO2 sequestering without creating offshore dead zones from brine discharge. There are also some misconceptions, the first being wind and solar have no cost-effective energy storage medium. That's false, and by overbuilding those fleets and never shutting them down, an unlimited amount of energy can be stored on site using synthetic fuel technologies, far cheaper than building new substations and transmission paths. That zero-emission fuel can completely eliminate our reliance on fossil fuels in ag and transportation almost overnight, including fueling commercial airlines, military jets, and our Navy and merchant marines. Have questions about that. If Boeing wants bank, let them build nuclear-powered electrified jets that never need to land except for inspections. Synfuels can even be used to power electric vehicles and bullet trains. So realistically, the only reason we might need petrol-based oil is for lubes and other petrochemical compounds, most of which can be synthesized from bio-ag algae products. We really don't need crude oil or natural gas at all, or even need to grow corn, sugarcane, etc. for methanol on a grand scale. Though it is prudent to grow some ethanol crops as well as algae and other oil-producing crops, plastering America with wind and the enormous untapped potential of tidal and wave power huge, while producing synthetic fuels, which can be easily and safely trucked all around the nation, would mean when a pipeline of synthetic fuels leaks on Native American land, grass grows. It's non-toxic to the biosphere and acts as a nutrient when formulated correctly. It means natives could actually earn bank on all those nasty pipelines, which should really be rerouted or shut down or never built, but might actually serve a safe, sane purpose someday soon. If Exxon, BP, or ETP wants to make bank and garner universal support, let them make the switch to zero-E fuels. Otherwise, throw them all in jail, along with all the shareholders, for their lying, thieving, murderous, suicidal ways. Let's just go straight to that. As for nuclear power, I guess unless you want to give them the out, that maybe they don't. I don't know. Who knows? As for nuclear power, I worked in a 3-unit reactor, designed systems for the industry, and there are lessons learned. The first being thorium reactors make sense. While our current uranium-based cycle is a toxic nightmare, a disaster already happening. We need to move all of that spent fuel away from coastlines in just a year or two, or we're all dead. Yeah, we're going to have to do that fast, and that's totally on point. Time's quickly running out on this catastrophic global disaster. I would also say we need to shut down the nuclear reactor outside of Phoenix as quickly as we possibly can, because that is just a disaster waiting to happen. I don't know why nobody ever talks about that, but there's a nuclear power plant in the middle of the desert that's cooled by wastewater from Phoenix. But if Phoenix, Phoenix gets really hot in the summer, and if Phoenix goes, has some kind of breakdown, of the grid, or their water source suddenly stops, or they, whatever. If any kind of problem at all happens in Phoenix, it's going to affect that nuclear reactor like very quickly. I can't even believe that's even there, or that it even exists. Bobbity boo. Where are we at? This is a very long comment. Yes, well-designed, even small thorium reactors powering microgrids along with wind, solar, zero-emission synthetic fuel rolled out in just 1 to 2 years might be enough to dodge extinction, but we are too slow. Nature is moving way too fast. One good methane burst means another will not be far behind. And that'll lead to rapid, dire consequences described above. In addition to addressing power, water, fuel, and ag, wind, solar, diesel, syn fuels, EVs, and electrified or zero-E, fueled from tractors, we need to address rehabilitating our oceans through rapid carbon sequestering, utilizing Mother Nature's plankton populations. We already know how to remove huge quantities of CO2 and correct ocean's pH while lowering global temperatures using iron oxide nitrates, starting near shorelines and literally growing that farm towards the ocean centers to nurture and expand algae and plankton crop. And the algae and plankton crop. Kids ought to be floating 50-gallon biodegradable drums or pallets offshore, fully loaded with rust, piss, and feces, apparently as high-tech as we can muster to fix our broken oxygen machine and acidic ocean. I vote yes for oxygen. You? This is an IQ test, and if we pull it off fast enough, we might maybe dramatically reverse current trends in the Arctic and save our ice caps. If we don't, and also fail to get radioactive spent fuel and enriched fuel away from our shorelines, when abrupt sea level rise hits in just 2 to 5 years max, we all die shortly thereafter. How would New York City react if 1 or 2 of the dozens of New England nuclear facilities gets whacked and fails like Fukushima? Imagine 30 million people trying to migrate inland at the same time as crops and aquifers are failing under scorching temps of 120 to 160 Fahrenheit across the farm belt. Pardon me. The migration scene is already playing out. Everything from Santa Barbara to LA, San Diego, Phoenix, and points east are becoming inhospitable. Now imagine a Gulf Coast, Miami mass migration due to hurricanes and rising seas, and temps running into SoCal migration running into the New York City migration, roughly 200 million people plus, all heading toward North Dakota, begging the tribes for a little food and shelter, or just killing them and stealing what they want, as mobs usually do. Life's a funny, sick, twisted game, but that scene may play out in the very near future. The good news for natives is the folks coming up from Texas will be armed with enough ammo to bury most of the liberals from California in the desert, or just eat them. While the New Yorkers, sorry, anyways, while the New Yorkers will likely be exposed to so much radiation, they won't be around for very long anyways. That means natives will only need to worry about armed, murderous, thirsty, starving Texans, and the massive migrants from Miami. One good blizzard will finish off that mob. Flowing, North America can begin to return to a much more natural landscape, save the radioactive ionizing gas flowing all around the atmosphere. Today, we have choices, less so next year, and even less in 2020. Our choices have a one-year half-life, reducing each year, while catastrophes mount each and every month. This is humanity's ultimate IQ test, and we are failing through bickering combined with suicidal myopia and denial. Perhaps we should elect high school kids to run things for a while. These days, they seem to make prudent choices faster and more frequently than any of the adults I know. And fast is the key. Anything less is suicide. Many believe it and are paid to ignore it, like tax cuts for the rich, defective gun laws, broken healthcare promises, and needless wars over resources which doom us all. Congress is either wholly corrupt or insane. If any member fails to champion climate, they are an idiot. It should be driven from office. Perhaps best replaced with an adult with staff made up of teens. They think and type faster than adults anyways. We created an awesome, artistic, beautiful combination of DNA, smart and powerful, evolving so fast our kids are smarter than most adults. Yet tragically, that leap in evolution lacked a key ingredient, caring for our only rock as if it was actually sacred, which the earth truly is. I like that comment. And there are some things in there that I raised an eyebrow at. But for the most part, the general thrust of the comment I really enjoyed. We do need to act fast. And also the thing I liked about that comment was that, I don't think there's anything wrong with proposing solutions. And I think we should be in the business of proposing solutions, or having, talking about what the solutions look like, as opposed to, or what real solutions look like, as opposed to, we should be doing something, or, governments should be cutting their, fossil fuel emissions by 30% by 2045, or whatever the hell the Paris Accord is trying to, tell people we're doing. Whatever it is we're agreeing to, in word, if not in deed. I think there needs to be much more conversation and much more discussion, much more publication, marketing, even, if you will, of the actual situation, how dire it is, and what it is we actually need to do. What is the path? What is the way forward? Obviously, there's going to be lots of arguments about it. I don't want to hear arguments from people saying, "Stop it! It's never going to happen. We're done. We're cooked. Shut up." I don't want to hear that. Okay. It doesn't matter if we're done or we're cooked. It doesn't matter, because, if you want to just be done and just enjoy your life, then go do that. I understand the situation is dire. I understand that we are in bad shape. I understand that there probably isn't an answer, that it's a predicament. I get all of that. You don't have to tell me that. Please refrain from telling me that. I understand. What I am trying to say at this very moment is that the situation is extremely dire, and it doesn't look good at all. We're most likely not going to survive, but if there's this much of a chance, we must be doing something. If you have children, or know anybody who has children, we should be doing something. We should be taking steps to mitigate, taking steps, mapping out what that path forward is, suggesting, what it is that we could be doing or should be doing, or what politicians should be doing. We should be writing papers. We should be, proposing petitions. I understand all of this is very difficult, thankless, and oftentimes fruitless, endeavors. There are plenty of activists on here who have been fighting the good fight for many, many years. I understand all of that. I understand that everybody is busy, everybody has jobs, everybody has lots of things they're juggling. I am one of those people. I'm just saying that, at the end of the day, at we have two things to do. We can say fuck it and let it all go, or we can figure out what the path forward is. And I for one am going to figure out what the path forward is. That is my intention with this channel. That is my intention in life. I oftentimes, every single day, I fail in so many ways to change, humanity's outlook on what it is we're doing. But I hope that these videos are me, succeeding with a portion of my day and doing what I can to alert and hopefully take action on what needs to be done. That is all. So I welcome suggestions. Harebrained, off the wall. I prefer realistic. I've already spoken at length about what my suggestions are. We will talk about this again. This doesn't end. The conversation on this doesn't end. I would like to hear more about what that. Like to hear about more of what you think an answer might look like, or a way forward might look like. I'm love to hear that. This video is already extremely long, so I don't know. I think I'm going to have to leave some of these articles, or most of these articles, for the next video. But I'm going to give you some sandbox news right now before I wrap this video up. So if I'm talking about anything outside of climate change, dealing with political, social issues, I'm going to call it the sandbox. So y'all know. Sandbox news. As you know, the world situation is strange. There's a lot going on. There's some stuff I want to cover that's not mainstream news, and I think I might leave it for another video. I think there are different layers of news these days. So there's what the mainstream news reports. There are what the alternative news reports. There's like a level below mainstream, or not below, but a level over here that's not mainstream news, but not totally like totally not alternative conspiracy theory. People talking about like what's really going on, intrigue, behind the scenes, deep state intrigue stuff, right? There's something that's kind of in the middle. News these days exists on a spectrum, right? There's mainstream to conspiracy theory, and there's lots of stuff in between, and all of it is valid. All of it is something that I'm going to be covering in the future. I'm going to be covering mainstream news all the way to conspiracy, and all of it has validity and has a right to be heard and a right to be talked about. So that's when I cover these different subjects, please understand I'm covering them as news, as something that is actually happening because people are talking about it. And these are things that are actually happening in the world. So they're not something that, people are making up in their minds and just running with, or they're not something that, some foreign entity is like feeding people. There's lots of mainstream news that's actually created by think tanks and, the Koch brothers, and it's not actually real news. So there's plenty of propaganda that people are feeding mainstream news stations in order to feed you, in order to make you think what they want you to think. So I think it's fair game. I think all of the spectrum of news should be covered. I think it all should be given equal weight, especially in reaction to, or as an alternative to what it is that people are being told by official outlets. So I'm going to be covering all that stuff soon, but not today. Today I'm going with mainstream. This is from Reuters, March 13th, 2018. Russia says U.S. plans to strike Damascus pledges military response. Okay, this is pretty wild because it's kind of it's actually kind of it's kind of playing off what has been talked about for a long time, not in the mainstream, but in the alternative news world. Um, it is well known and almost a given that the United States funds rebel forces and possibly even ISIS in the Middle East. So this is Russia responding to Russia has actually talked about, Putin has talked about these forces that are US backed, that we deny that we're funding some rebels, the moderate rebels or the good rebels, but not these guys. But there's lots of intel and lots of actually validated, there's lots of fact in the fact that we have been funding all kinds of entities over there, and some of them have, I guess, taken part in actions and then blamed it on the Damascus government. False flag. So this is Russia talking about a false flag being perpetrated by rebels that we back, that they are going to take as a strike from us. This is really happening. This is real shit. So what they're saying is, we're gonna respond to something that we think is happening, that we know is happening, that in the U.S. only conspiracy theorists or alternative news outlets recognize as real, but the mainstream would never admit this. So they're saying, we know this is happening. The mainstream news in the U.S. doesn't acknowledge this, but we're going to respond to this. This is some serious shit. I think this right here is something that we should be very worried about. Russia said on Tuesday it had information that the United States planned to bomb the government quarter in Damascus on an invented pretext, and said it would respond militarily if it felt Russian lives were threatened by such an attack. Valery Gerasimov, head of Russia's general staff, said Moscow had information that rebels in the enclave of Eastern Ghouta were planning to fake a chemical weapons attack against civilians and blame it on the Syrian army. He said the United States intended to use the fake attack as a pretext to bomb the government quarter nearby Damascus, where he said Russian military advisors, Russian military police, and Russian ceasefire monitors were based. In the event of a threat to the lives of our servicemen, Russia's armed forces will take retaliatory measures against the missiles and launchers used, Gerasimov said in a statement. He did not say when the alleged attack would take place or provide detailed evidence to back his assertions. Russia has previously accused rebels in Syria preparing to use toxic agents in eastern Ghouta so they could later accuse Damascus of employing chemical weapons. This is an early claim by the United States that the Syrian government had used chemical weapons against their own citizens. And then there were other people who had investigated this claim and said, nope, that didn't happen. Damascus denies Western allegations that government forces have used chemical weapons. U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley, warned on Monday that Washington remains prepared to act if we must, if the UN Security Council failed to act on Syria, as the Syrian army's onslaught in eastern Ghouta continued unabated. Wow. That's not good news. There are, I think there's a lot of things going on in the U.S. as concerns the deep state or the military-industrial complex or whoever's running things. There has been, since Trump has been in office, there's been a lot of talk about that there is a deep state war going on. There are conflicting messages from the Trump administration about like being obviously, he's pro-military and pro-war, pro-strong military presence, et cetera, but he has also claimed that he wants to negotiate. He wanted things in Syria to settle down, and they actually at one point did. Like, it was a few months ago that Russia said we're ready to remove our forces, that the fighting in Syria had quieted down to a point where it was almost basically over, and now all of a sudden it's ramped up again. Why is that happening? I don't know. I don't know that it is a result of the Trump administration. I have serious doubts that it is the Trump administration trying to make this happen. I don't know. The same goes with the relations between the U.S. and Russia. Like, there's this warmongering left wing Democrats trying to accuse Russia of all kinds of stuff and meddling in our elections, and Trump being a Russian stooge, and Trump actually saying like he wants to better the relations with Russia, and actually doing a few things in that direction. It's very confusing to me as well. I know all of this is like, I'm speaking around a lot of things happening that have conflicting evidence on both sides. There's conflicting information on the liberal and the conservative media, conflicting things on the mainstream and the conspiracy alternative media. There's a lot happening, and it's hard to unravel everything that's going on. This is a very, very scary situation. The fact that Russia has just signaled that they are prepared to strike at anyone that threatens them, whether officially acknowledged or not. As far as like, anybody who's a proxy of the United States is going to be recognized by Russia as a threat from the United States. So we're in interesting and scary times, and I hope that there is some kind of resolution to this, or some kind of, we're having denuclearization talks with North Korea. That is a great thing. I'm not a Trump fan, but if you think this is, not a good thing, I don't know what's wrong with you. It's a good thing to talk with North Korea about denuclearization, and about, the possibility that North Korea and South Korea may actually become one again. Those things are happening. There's just a lot of like undercover intrigue in the world, and it's hard to parse it all out. But there is a lot happening that I want to cover in my next few videos, as far as the sandbox and what's going on, because there is stuff going on, and it affects you all, and I want you all to know about it. That's all I have for today, for tonight. I appreciate your eyes, your ears, and your conscience, as always. If you would like to support this channel, you can do so at the links below, and I hope to be back tomorrow with another video. Until then, peace.